Research Methodology. Chapter 3. Data Collection and Processing. Part 1. Meaning of data. Data refers to raw facts, figures, observations, or measurements collected for analysis and interpretation. It is the foundation for drawing conclusions, making decisions, and generating knowledge. The word data comes from Latin meaning given things, information that is gathered or recorded as input for research. Data can be qualitative, descriptive, non-numerical information like opinions or behaviors, or quantitative, numerical information that can be measured statistically, such as income, age, or test scores. Data alone has no meaning until it is processed and analyzed. For example, the marks scored by students in an exam are data. These numbers become meaningful only when analyzed to find averages, pass rates, or performance trends. Characteristics of data. Aggregate of facts. Single unconnected figures are not data. It must be a collection of related facts. Affected by multiple factors, business data is influenced by many controllable and uncontrollable factors simultaneously. Estimated with reasonable accuracy, data is measured to a reasonable standard, e.g., length measured correct up to 0.01 centimeters. Collected systematically for a purpose. Data must be gathered with a clear objective in mind. Random collection leads to unreliable results. Related to one another, data must be logically connected and comparable, e.g., crop yield and soil quality are related. Numerically expressed, any fact called data must be expressed numerically. Qualitative attributes must be scaled into numbers. Sources of data. Primary sources, data gathered firsthand by the researcher for a specific study. It is raw, unfiltered, and most authoritative. Examples: individuals, focus groups, interviews, observation. Secondary sources, data collected from already existing sources. Can be published, government publications, journals, books, reports, online databases, or unpublished, company records, diaries, biographies. Tertiary sources, an interpretation of a secondary source. Generally represented by indexes, bibliographies, dictionaries, encyclopedias, handbooks, directories, and internet search engines. Primary versus secondary data, key differences. Source, primary, collected via observation, questionnaire, etc. Secondary, published data from government, journals, trade sources. Statistical process, primary, no statistical process done on it. Secondary, statistical process has already been applied. Originality, primary, original, collected first time by the user. Secondary, not original, collected by some other agency. Use, primary, compiled for a specific purpose. Secondary, taken from another source and used for decision-making. Terms and definitions, primary, terms and units of measurement are defined by the researcher. Secondary, terms and units may not match the researcher's needs. Methods of data collection. Primary methods. Observation, systematic recording of behaviors in natural settings. Interviews, direct interaction with respondents, structured/semi-structured/unstructured. Questionnaires, written questions distributed to respondents, open or close-ended. Surveys, standardized instruments to gather data on opinions or behavior. Experiments, manipulating variables under controlled conditions to observe effects. Secondary methods. Books, journals, articles, official records and reports, online databases, archives, historical documents, previous studies. Observation, meaning. Observation is a systematic method of data collection by directly watching, listening to, and recording behaviors, events, or phenomena as they naturally occur. It enables researchers to collect data without asking questions. The word observation means carefully watching and noting something. In research, it means scientifically recording what actually happens in a setting. Observation becomes a scientific tool only when it is planned specifically to answer a research question, executed systematically with proper controls, and provides a reliable account of what happened. Casual watching without purpose is not observation in the research sense. It is especially useful in behavioral sciences, psychology, and education. For example, a researcher observing how employees interact during team meetings, recording who speaks, how often, and what reactions occur, is conducting structured observation. Types of observation. Structured observation. The researcher follows a predetermined checklist or coding system. Data collection is systematic, focused, and minimizes subjectivity. Unstructured observation. The researcher observes freely without a fixed plan, capturing all relevant behaviors as they occur. Used in exploratory and qualitative research. Participant observation. The researcher actively joins and participates in the group being studied. Provides first-hand insights and deeper understanding of social dynamics. Non-participant observation. The researcher observes from a distance without engaging with the group. Maintains objectivity and records natural behavior without influence. Structured observation, merits and demerits. Meaning, uses a predetermined checklist or coding system to observe specific behaviors. Ensures systematic, focused data collection that is easy to quantify and compare. Merits. Ensures systematic and organized data collection. Facilitates quantitative analysis and comparison. Reduces researcher bias and provides objective, measurable results. Demerits. May overlook unanticipated behaviors not in the checklist. Rigid and less flexible. Requires prior knowledge of variables. May not capture the full context or richness of behavior. Unstructured observation, merits and demerits. Meaning, observing freely without a predetermined plan, capturing all relevant behaviors as they occur. Used in qualitative and exploratory research. Merits. Captures rich, detailed, and contextual information. Flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances. Can identify unexpected behaviors and provides a holistic understanding. Demerits. Difficult to quantify and analyze statistically. High potential for observer bias and inconsistent data. Hard to replicate in other studies. Participant observation, merits and demerits. Meaning, the researcher actively engages with the group being studied while observing their behaviors and interactions. Common in anthropology and ethnographic research. Merits. Provides in-depth, first-hand insights and access to hidden behaviors. Builds rapport and trust with participants. Useful for studying complex social or cultural contexts. Demerits. Time-consuming and labor-intensive. Risk of researcher losing objectivity. May influence participants' natural behavior. Difficult to generalize findings beyond the observed group. Non-participant observation, merits and demerits. Meaning, the researcher observes the group from a distance without engaging in activities. Maintains objectivity by not influencing the setting. Merits. Heavy checkmark maintains objectivity and reduces observer influence on subjects. Heavy checkmark captures natural behavior as it occurs, less intrusive for participants. Heavy checkmark easier to standardize and replicate in similar studies. Demerits. Limited understanding of participants' perspectives and motivations. May miss contextual nuances or internal states. Less suitable for complex social interactions requiring engagement. Interviewing, meaning. Interviewing is a method of collecting data through direct verbal interaction between the researcher and the respondent. It allows detailed, in-depth information about opinions, experiences, attitudes, or behaviors to be gathered. The word interview means a formal meeting between two people, here, the researcher and the respondent, where questions are asked and answered to collect information. Interviews can be structured, fixed questions, semi-structured, guided but flexible or unstructured, open-ended conversation, depending on the level of control needed. This method is widely used in social sciences, psychology, market research, and education. It helps capture nuances and explore complex issues that surveys cannot. For example, a researcher interviewing a bank manager about customer satisfaction is collecting primary qualitative data through a structured interview. Interviewing, merits and demerits. Merits. Heavy checkmark provides in-depth and detailed information from respondents. Heavy checkmark clarifies misunderstandings immediately during the session. Heavy checkmark allows probing for elaboration and deeper responses. Heavy checkmark can capture nonverbal cues like tone, expression, and body language. Heavy checkmark useful for collecting sensitive or complex information. Demerits. Time-consuming and labor-intensive to conduct. Requires skilled interviewers to avoid bias. Can introduce interviewer bias in responses. Expensive if covering large samples across wide areas. Respondents may give socially desirable answers rather than the truth. Telephonic interviews, merits and demerits. Meaning, a method of collecting data by conducting interviews over the telephone. Useful for reaching respondents who are geographically distant or difficult to meet in person. Merits. Heavy checkmark cost-effective compared to face-to-face interviews. Heavy checkmark can reach respondents in remote or distant locations. Heavy checkmark saves time and allows clarification and probing for deeper responses. Demerits. Cannot capture nonverbal cues like gestures or body language. Limited to respondents who have access to a phone. Respondents may be less willing to give detailed answers. Poor network can disrupt. Indirect oral interviews, merits and demerits. Meaning, a method where the researcher collects information through a mediator or secondary source, such as a family member, colleague, or community leader, rather than directly from the respondent. Used when the primary respondent is unavailable or unable to communicate. Merits. Heavy checkmark useful when direct respondents are inaccessible, children, patients, etc. Heavy checkmark saves time and can provide contextual or background insights. Heavy checkmark maintains communication when direct contact is not possible. Demerits. Information may be less accurate or biased through the mediator's interpretation. Cannot capture personal experiences directly, lacks depth. Increases risk of misunderstanding or misreporting. Information from correspondence, merits and demerits. Meaning, data collected through written communication, letters, emails, or official memos from individuals or organizations who have knowledge about the topic. Used in organizational research, historical studies, and social surveys. Merits. Heavy checkmark provides authentic and reliable documented information. Heavy checkmark useful for collecting data from remote locations, reduces travel costs. Heavy checkmark enables direct communication with experts or officials. Demerits. Response time can be long or delayed. Information may be incomplete or selective, limited ability to clarify answers. Depends on the willingness and cooperation of correspondents. Questionnaire method, meaning. The questionnaire method is a structured technique of data collection in which the researcher prepares a set of written questions and distributes them to respondents to gather information systematically. It can be self-administered or administered by the researcher. The word questionnaire means a list of questions, a tool designed to collect specific information from a group of people in a uniform and structured way. Questionnaires are widely used in surveys, market research, educational studies, and social research to collect quantitative or qualitative data from a large number of participants. They can include open-ended, closed-ended, or mixed questions. Responses are consistent across all respondents since everyone answers the same questions. For example, a company distributing a questionnaire to 500 customers to find out their satisfaction with a product is using this method to collect primary data efficiently. Questionnaire method, merits and demerits. Merits. Heavy checkmark allows data collection from a large number of respondents efficiently. Heavy checkmark saves time and cost compared to personal interviews. Heavy checkmark ensures uniformity of questions for all respondents. Heavy checkmark respondents have time to think and provide thoughtful answers. Heavy checkmark useful for collecting both qualitative and quantitative data. Demerits. Cannot clarify ambiguous or misunderstood questions. Low response rates can affect data reliability. Responses may be biased or socially desirable. Not suitable for illiterate or uneducated respondents. Limited flexibility to probe for detailed information. That's all for part 1. Watch part 2 to continue. Schedule method, tools for data collection. Questionnaire types and more. Like, share and subscribe to Ria's Notes Direct It.